Hello, citizens of RAWR Nation. RAWR here, and I'm doing something a little bit different today. I wanted to take a break from doing videos because I just really wanted to take a step back, and I wanted to try and think of things to improve the overall quality of my videos. So, you're not going to be physically seeing me for a little while, maybe a couple weeks or so, but I didn't want to stop doing reviews, so here we are, an audio version of me. You're gonna have to deal with this for a couple weeks, but I will be back. You will be seeing me soon. I just didn't want to stop doing reviews, so yeah. Audio reviews. This is gonna be fun. It's like doing a podcast, which is, I always wanted to do one. But anyway, the other thing that I'm doing differently today is that I mainly talk about mainstream wide-release films, but other than all of the major Oscar buzz films that are getting wide releases, January is the dumping ground for new films, and I really wasn't interested in any of the new releases this week, so I thought I'd talk about this small indie film that I had the pleasure of seeing at a couple of film festival screenings last year. Blame is the directorial debut of young actress Quinn Shepherd, and it centers on a rivalry that develops between these two girls after one of them forms a taboo relationship with their drama teacher. The film is very loosely based off of the Arthur Miller play The Crucible, only this time the setting of the action is a modern-day high school. This is such a roller coaster ride of a film. The screenplay, which was also written by Shepherd, I believe, is a stroke of genius. It's extremely original, and it subverts the typical stereotypes that a film of this genre generally has. When I was watching this for the first time, I remember thinking to myself several times, alright, I know where this is going now. But then the film completely goes in a different direction. That actually happened to me several times throughout the course of the film that I eventually just gave up in trying to predict what was going to happen next. I mean, every once in a while it does hit one of the same beats that a modern teen drama film has, but of course nothing is ever 100% original, and for the most part this film is a very fresh experience. The other thing about the screenplay that stood out to me is the sheer complexity of its well-rounded characters. This is a film where it isn't always clear who is good and who is bad. That's because, much like in real life, all of the characters do some really good things and they all do some really bad things. Furthermore, and I'm only speaking for myself here, I didn't find any of the characters to be likable. To some of you, that might be a bad thing, but I've always believed that you don't necessarily need your characters or your protagonists to be likable in order to be invested in the story. For me, Blame is the perfect example of this because there were several times throughout the film where Abigail, the main character, wasn't on my good side. Yet, I was still invested in her story. Personally, I couldn't connect to her on a deeper level, but I still cared. Like I said before, you don't need characters to be likable. The way I see it, a likable character is when you like the character as a person. For example, I think Kylo Ren is a great character in Star Wars. He is layered, complex, and well-rounded, but if I ran into him at a store, I'd run the other way because he's a terrible person. I feel the same way about the characters in Blame. They're great characters, and I was very invested in their storylines, but they aren't people I'd want to be friends with. Moving along, every great character needs a great actor to bring them to life, and man, the cast of Blame succeeded. Now, while I think that the entire ensemble was excellent, I'm going to talk about three cast members specifically: Quinn Shepherd, Nadia Alexander, and Chris Messina. Now, this was my first exposure to Quinn Shepherd. I haven't seen any of her previous work. This woman really deserves a lot of credit. I don't think people understand, but it's incredibly hard to direct a film. It's incredibly hard to act in a film. When you put those two things together, the task is nearly impossible. And I would know. I'm speaking from experience here. For those of you who don't know, I've directed short films before, and in the last one I directed, I also acted in. It's very difficult. Not easy at all. Obviously, it must have been much harder for Shepherd given that Blame is a feature film and my film is a short film, and she played the lead role while I only played a supporting role. Quinn was great in the role. She played it very subtle. There were several scenes where I felt it would have been easy for her to go over the top, but she doesn't. She also doesn't have a lot of dialogue, which in my opinion makes acting even harder because then you're only relying on your facial expressions, your movement, and things of that sort. I was really quite impressed with Shepard's acting. Nadia Alexander, who plays Melissa, I also thought was excellent. She really embodies the role of the edgy, punk, moody, and unstable teenage girl that you see in pretty much any high school, and it felt very realistic. Sometimes when I'm watching a movie and a character like her pops up, I'm like, you're not this character. You are an actor playing this character. And I didn't get that feeling from her at all, so that means she did a really solid job. Chris Messina plays the drama teacher, Jeremy. I was familiar with Chris Messina prior to this film. He was in Vicky Cristina Barcelona, which is one of my all-time favorite films ever. What's special about Chris's performance are the different nuances that he brings to it. There are moments where he plays the character as a genuinely nice guy, and there are other moments where he plays him as kind of a creep. He puts those two things together to create quite a fascinating performance. He also deserves a lot of credit for what he pulled off in this film. The biggest thing about this film is that it actually reinforces a topic that I am very passionate about. Now, I'm going to try to not go off on a rant here, even though I low-key kind of want to, but every single year, at least once a year, I leave the theater after having seen a really great film, and I say to myself, this is why we need more female directors in Hollywood. It is mind-boggling to me that it's 2018 and the vast majority of films are still being directed by men. Why is it that whenever you list some of the greatest filmmakers of all time, hardly any of them are women? Why is it that it took Patty Jenkins 14 years after making the Academy Award-winning film Monster to direct another film? It's because, for some reason, the film industry is still sexist enough to deny women the opportunity to make films. There are several great female filmmakers out there. Unfortunately, not many of them have consistently been given the opportunity to make great films. The only female filmmakers that I can think of that have been consistently given the opportunity to make these films are Kathryn Bigelow, Ava DuVernay, and Sofia Coppola. Those are the only ones that I can think of right off the top of my head. That's just 3 females compared to hundreds of male directors who have no trouble getting work. It's important that we have female directors because femininity is often misrepresented and we don't often get films from female perspectives. I have a quote here that I'm going to read off. It was in an article that I read about this film, Blame, right around the time that I first saw it. It comes from Quinn Shepard herself, and when I read this, oh my god, when I read this, I was so incredibly happy. I was literally like, yes, thank God, finally there's someone out there who gets it. This is what I have been saying for years, okay? This is the quote. I think, honestly, what we need to do is we need to have more scripts about young women written by young women and less scripts about young women written by like 50-year-old men in Hollywood. Speak the truth. Speak the truth. This is a huge issue. Obviously, I don't think that this only applies to scripts. It also applies to directors, producers, cinematographers, editors, basically any career within the film industry. I think that the fact that Blame is written by a woman and directed by a woman is a crucial reason as to why it succeeds as a film. I think that that's the same reason that the film Wonder Woman was highly successful last summer. Both of these films took the traditional stereotypes of their respective genres and showed them to us through different lenses. Wonder Woman was very generic and by the numbers, yet it still felt fresh because we've never seen a good comic book film from a female perspective. Blame, well, let's just say that as a male in his early 20s, after watching this film, I feel like I have a much better understanding of what it's like to be a teenage girl in high school. The other thing that these two films have in common is that they don't over-sexualize or treat their female characters as objects. Sexuality is an important thing in Blame. While its female characters are depicted as sexy, they are not over-sexualized. There are some sex scenes, and they felt very intimate and natural. Had you put Blame in the hands of almost any male director, I'm pretty sure that they would have found a way to accentuate all of the ladies' assets not only during the sex scenes, but throughout the rest of the film. Listen, I'm a male and I'm saying this, okay? I'm admitting to this. There are several males who do this. These are the reasons why we need more female filmmakers in the industry. As a male in the film industry, it genuinely makes me upset and a bit uneasy knowing that I'm going to have more opportunities than any of the talented female filmmakers I know. I know several talented women in the film industry, and as a matter of fact, some of them actually worked on this film. Several of them were like part of the film crew, some of them were like featured extras. Like, I don't know, like the producer or the director or anything. I met the director at one of the screenings of this, but I don't know her. To add to that, we need to stop using our positions of power to abuse these already poorly treated women in the film industry. If you've been following anything that's been going on in Hollywood recently, you'd know that this is a huge issue right now. 2017 was a huge year for women in the film industry. In fact, the top 3 highest grossing domestic films in 2017 were all female-led. Star Wars The Last Jedi, Beauty and the Beast, and Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman was released early in the summer, and it was a solid, empowering film for females. I don't think it was a coincidence that not too long after its release, several women found the courage and bravery to speak out about the abuses that they faced at the hands of men such as Harvey Weinstein, Kevin Spacey, Louis C.K., Brett Ratner, and several others. I 1000% support the hashtag #MeToo movement, and while it was heartbreaking to hear all of these stories and of all of the accusations, I'm very glad that this happened because 1, we needed to make sure that the abusers got the consequences that they deserved, and 2, we need to educate people and future generations about harassment and consent. Blame actually addresses the issue of consent, and I believe that it makes a very big statement about it. And in that regard, Blame is a very, very, very important film. And the fact that it's coincidentally coming out during this time makes it a little more special. This is an issue that is very important to me. It's very sensitive. It's something that I'm very passionate about. And I can go on and on and on about this for ages. But this is a film review, so what else can I say about Blame? It's sharp, it's poignant, it's utterly uncomfortable. It's a fantastic debut from a promising writer-director, and I will most definitely be looking forward to any future projects from this director. On my rating scale, Blame gets a 9 out of 10. Blame is now playing in select cities and is also available on iTunes, Amazon, and other VOD services. Have you guys seen it? Did you like it? Did you dislike it? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Or do you want to see it? Why or why not? Comment down below. Let me know. If you enjoyed this, please leave a like and subscribe today for more content. RAWR signing out here. Farewell, citizens of RAWR Nation, and I will catch you all in the next video.